This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello, and welcome to the Sport of Pro Wrestling podcast. I am Chris Samsa, and this is your New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax 30 Night 6 preview. G1 Climax 30 continues from Korakuen Hall in Tokyo on September 29th, 2020 with the B Block's third set of matches. The G1 has visited Korakuen Hall every year since 2008, with over 10% of the tournament's matches taking place in the storied building. The card is headlined by the 6th G1 Climax meeting between perennial G1 frontrunners Tetsuya Naito and Hirooki Goto. The semi-main event will feature KOPW 2020 Provisional Champion Toru Yano against now former IWGP Heavyweight Champion Evil. Third down the card will be a rematch of a Korakuen Hall Classic as Hiroshi Tanahashi will look to score his first victory of the tournament over Juice Robinson in a rematch of the 2018 New Japan Cup semifinals. KENTA and Zack Saber Jr. will attempt to break their 500 records in the tournament. And the first G1 match on the card will feature SANADA and YOSHI-HASHI in a match guaranteed to get one of them on the board. Of course, you can find my complete statistical breakdown for every competitor in this year's G1 Climax at voicesofwrestling.com. I have interactive, sortable tables for NJPW's 2020, detailed results and statistics of all 1,485 G1 Climax matches to date, as well as details and a full box score on this year's tournament at sportofprowrestling.com. You can let me know what you find when you drill down and sort that data by dropping me a line on Twitter at @TheChrisSamsa. Okay, another preview here, a little bit down to the wire because I had a moment where I decided I wanted to pull together some extra statistics here and take a look at some stuff, and it ended up being super interesting. So hopefully you guys find it interesting as well, even though we are just a mere 8 hours from the card beginning, but hopefully you guys find this before you watch, or you circle back to it even after you watch the card tonight or tomorrow morning, as it may be. So, this card, Night 6 here, the G1, will come to you on September 29th, 2020 from the storied Korakuen Hall. The time will be 6:30 JST, as with all Korakuen Hall evening shows. So that's 4:30 a.m. my time. I'm in Chicago. 5:30 a.m. on the East Coast, and 2:30 a.m. on the West Coast over in San Francisco, if we're talking about America. Of course, you can watch live or on demand on NJPW World. Live is with the Japanese commentary, and on demand later on is with the English commentary. They've been getting those up about 36 to 48 hours after each card, so not so bad if you're running behind and then you just play catch up on a couple of cards. They've been doing a really nice job of getting those out to us as soon as we can. But I hope this podcast serves as a little bit of a supplement if you are choosing to watch as soon as you can with the Japanese commentary. Or even with the English commentary. Hopefully this keeps you up to date on what's going on and some of the stories that are being told through this year's tournament. So, like I said, live or on demand on NJPW World, and as we know, the best way to use NJPW World is with the NJPW EXT extension. NJPW EXT is the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like synchronized viewing parties, dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details. So we're headed into night 3 of the B block. And we've got 2 nights of results to take a peek at, and what we've got here is a pretty balanced block. So I've got 3 competitors with 4 points, 4 competitors with 2 points, and then 3 competitors with 0 points. And some of those zeros are surprising, specifically Hiroshi Tanahashi and SANADA. They're joined by YOSHI-HASHI at the 0, which I don't find super surprising, but Tanahashi and SANADA certainly are. Coming out pretty cold there at the beginning, but we know that that's not necessarily a death sentence, as Jay White started 0-3 last year and was able to come back and win the block. With the 2s, nothing really super surprising in there. You got Zack Saber Jr., KENTA, Evil, and Hirooki Goto kind of living in the middle. And then at the top, a couple of surprises there too. So you've got Tetsuya Naito, IWGP Heavyweight Champion and Intercontinental Champion. He's got 4 points. You've got Juice Robinson and Toru Yano, both with 4 points as well. And I could say that both of those are surprises coming out that hot. Toru Yano, you always figure he's going to pick up 8 points. So he just got 4 of his points early. I'll be surprised if he lands with higher than 8. Definitely not going to land higher than 10 if history is any indicator. And maybe this is Juice Robinson's coming out party. So maybe he's going to have, he's finally going to have that tournament where he lands over 500, or maybe he's going to end up on a cold streak here. We're going to see kind of how that ends up for him. As we look at some of the details, Tetsuya Naito's total match length of 55.44, or an average match length of 27.52, is really an incredible feat at this point right now. His shortest win was 27.16, longest was 28.28. So those 2 wins both went super long. Really highly contested matchups with Hiroshi Tanahashi on the first night, and then Zack Saber Jr. on the second. So I feel like we're going to get a lot of time limit teases with Naito, especially because his matches are kind of known to go long. Other than that, nothing super surprising in the times or the details. As we get more matches, the details start to shake out and become a little more disparate, and they become a little bit more of a part of the story. But something to look out for as we go along is how many minutes can Tetsuya Naito kind of put up. I mean, there's only been 2 wrestlers who have averaged over 20 minutes over the course of an entire G1 Climax, and they are both Kazuchika Okada. So that's the B block. That's kind of where we stand right now. Again, Naito, Robinson, Yano at the top, Tanahashi, YOSHI-HASHI, and SANADA at the bottom. So now I can reveal what kind of held me up throughout the day and set me back here in getting this posted. I was looking at what I had so far for this card, and it was coming up a little flat. I didn't have much. Goto and Naito, they've got a long-term story, of course. Juice Robinson and Tanahashi's kind of a one-match history. They've got that one match that they participated in together in the New Japan Cup semifinals. And, a couple of nuggets and tidbits throughout the other matches. But I felt like I was coming up a little flat on kind of the content for this particular card, or even the next 2 cards. And I thought to myself, I wonder if there's anything interesting in the all-time G1 results at Korakuen Hall. And you'll never believe it, there is. The more you look and the more detailed you get, the more interesting stuff you can find if you're really looking for it. And Korakuen Hall is one of those buildings that is really renowned, and it's one that typically, as we look at G1 Climaxes, is one of those buildings that you mark on the calendar. You say, hey, they're at Korakuen. And if you look at the cards this year, there's not a ton that stand out, right? Like we look at that night 5 that we just surpassed, and you've got Okada and Jay White at the top. You've got Shingo and Will Ospreay in a rematch of the consensus match of the year, and you've got Kota Ibushi versus Tomohiro Ishii. And how can you go wrong with that card, right? And then you look at this B block card, and it's good, right? You've got Tetsuya Naito and Hirooki Goto on top, good, strong workers, a lot of history there. You've got Juice Robinson and Hiroshi Tanahashi as kind of one of the second marquee matchups. And then, besides that, you've got some fresh rivalries, some budding rivalries, right? Like Zack Saber Jr. and KENTA, for example. So I was feeling a little underwhelmed with what story we could tell tonight and what we were looking at and what we had to look forward to. And I thought, man, I guess maybe the story's in the building. And what I found was that Korakuen Hall has hosted 158 of the 1,485 G1 Climax matches to date. So that's almost 11%, a little, between 10 and 11% of the G1 Climax matches in history have taken place at Korakuen Hall. And all of those matches have been since 2008. The G1 has visited Korakuen at least once, for at least one card, every year since 2008, maxing itself out in 2012 with a total of 24 matches. So I think that was 4 full cards. Besides that, mostly 2 or 3 cards a year. The past 3 years has been 3 nights back to back, and this year we just get the 2, so 10 more Korakuen Hall matches. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, the history in buildings is super important in New Japan. So some of these matchups that you're going to see on this card have happened a time or two in New Japan at Korakuen Hall, or they tie into some statistical anomalies like Hirooki, Goto, and Tetsuya Naito. So I guess now we'll start to walk through the whole card. So main eventing tonight is Hirooki Goto versus Tetsuya Naito. Goto coming in with 2 points and Tetsuya Naito coming in with 4. Goto defeated Sanada and lost to Kenta, and Tetsuya Naito has defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi and also defeated Zack Saber Jr. If we look at the entirety of Tetsuya Naito and Hirooki Goto's careers, they may be the most statistically evenly matched competitors in the history of the G1. Their G1 Climax 30 tilt will be their 9th singles match and their 6th G1 meeting. To say things have landed evenly is actually a little bit of an understatement. Goto dominated the series early in conjunction with his early successes of his career, and unsurprisingly, Naito has surged recently as he ascended to IWGP Heavyweight Championship status in the last 5 to 7 years. Hirooki Goto and Tetsuya Naito enter their match at Korakuen Hall tied for 5th all-time on the G1 wins list, so they both, over the course of their career, now have 56 G1 Climax victories. Hirooki Goto tied Shinsuke Nakamura for the most G1 wins over the course of the previous 15 years, so that's 2005 to 2019 with 55, and Tetsuya Naito was just 1 win behind them with 54. And here's the nugget that made pulling all that Korakuen Hall data worthwhile. So Tetsuya Naito and Hirooki Goto have both participated in 16 G1 Climax matches at Korakuen Hall. Now, I said they were even. I said that things had come out super similar as I looked through all their kind of data points and statistics and everything I've got. So they've each had 16 G1 Climax matches at Korakuen Hall, and they each have 10 wins and 6 losses. And their 10 wins each are tied for the most in tournament history at Korakuen Hall. So you could say that tonight's match with Hirooki Goto and Tetsuya Naito is for the G1 Championship at Korakuen Hall, if you really wanted to put something on the line here. I just thought that was wild that they come together with, kind of these wildly similar G1 histories, these wildly similar paths to this point in the sense of kind of their overall and total statistics. And then as I pull one venue's data, and it's an important venue, and it's the exact same win-loss record. So, and it's the best. They both have 10 wins, so that's kind of wild. In 2020, obviously Naito, the champion right now, he's only got that 1 loss on record to Evil. He's 6-1. His matches are going super long. He's still averaging well over 30 minutes, so 32-12, and his G1 matches haven't really helped bring that down at all. So you've got to figure he's going to tire out here a little bit. Goto, on the other hand, his average matches are only running about 16, so it wouldn't surprise me to see this one go closer to 20, especially because Goto's average losing match length is only 18:37. In the head-to-head category, Naito and Goto, they've met in 8 singles matches since 2011, and they're deadlocked at a 4-4 record. Goto dominated the first half of their career series winning their first 4 matchups, including a Wrestle Kingdom 10 victory and 2 G1 Climax victories. So that was G1 Climax 22 and G1 Climax 24. But Naito enters tonight's main event with a 4-match winning streak over Hirooki Goto, dating back to March of 2016 when Naito finally overcame Goto in the New Japan Cup 2016 final. He has since defeated Goto in 3 straight G1 Climax tournaments, so that's 27, 28, and 29. Certainly looking to extend that streak here and take a 5-4 lead over Goto in their history. In regards to Korakuen head-to-head, Naito and Goto have met once at Korakuen Hall, and that was during last year's G1 Climax tournament, where Naito continued his 4-match winning streak in 16 minutes and 1 second. As we head down the card, like I mentioned, there's kind of a little bit less to work with, but some interesting nuggets here. So in the semi-main event, we've got Toru Yano facing Evil. Yano coming in with 4 points, Evil coming in with 2. Yano has defeated Hiroshi, Tanahashi, and Sanada. Evil defeated YOSHI-HASHI and lost to Zack Saber Jr. We can probably pencil this match in as one of the shortest of the tournament. Of course, Toru Yano knows that brevity is the soul of wit, so he keeps his matches short and places heavy value on his time. But at just 2 minutes and 15 seconds, Toru Yano and Evil averaged the shortest matches against each other between any active competitors in New Japan. So they've had 2 matches against each other in the 2016 and 2017 G1, and they've gone 1 minute and 33 seconds and 2 minutes and 57 seconds. In regards to their G1 history, Toru Yano will be super familiar with his surroundings in his match against Evil. This will be the 19th G1 Climax match at Korakuen Hall that he participates in. He is 8-10, and Evil comes into this match with Yano at 4-3 in his 7 Korakuen Hall G1 matches to date. In 2020, both these guys having kind of surprisingly good years statistically, or at least in the win-loss columns. Yano enters his match with Evil on a 4-match winning streak, including his victory in the KOPW 4-way at Summer Struggle in Jingo. And while Yano is 5-1 on the year in singles matches, it may be important to keep an eye on how Yano's singles matches finish going forward. The crafty Yano has not been pinned or submitted in 2020. His only loss was via countout to Hiromu Takahashi during the New Japan Cup. Evil enters this match with Yano in need of a quick match. Evil's 4 hours, 4 minutes, and 23 seconds in total singles match length in 2020 is only behind Kazuchika Okada. Third down the card, we're going to have Hiroshi Tanahashi and Juice Robinson. Hiroshi Tanahashi coming in with 0 points, Juice Robinson coming in with 2. Hiroshi Tanahashi has lost to Tetsuya Naito and Toru Yano, and Juice Robinson has defeated YOSHI-HASHI and KENTA. So Juice Robinson and Hiroshi Tanahashi, they don't have a ton of one-on-one history to draw from, but their one match was certainly a memorable one. So Tanahashi and Juice Robinson met in the 2018 New Japan Cup semifinal right here at Korakuen Hall in a match that helped establish the flamboyant one can hang in New Japan's main event scene. Juice looks to continue his winning ways since returning to Japan. He's 2-0 in this year's G1 Climax. His 2 wins to begin the tournament match his output to begin last year's tournament when he started 2-0 before suffering a defeat to Jeff Cobb on his way to just an 8-point tournament. Hiroshi Tanahashi has struggled in singles matches this year. He's currently just 1-4 in 2020, including 2 straight losses to begin his G1. After leaving it all on the line against IWGP Heavyweight Champion Tetsuya Naito, Tanahashi wasn't able to outwit Toru Yano in his second block match. Tanahashi has been in the hole at the beginning of G1 tournaments before, but as his age advances, he can't depend on himself to rattle off consecutive victories like he has in the past. In 19 previous G1 tournaments, Tanahashi, he started 0-2 twice, once in 2013 and once in 2016. In 2013, the ace turned around his fortune and was able to reach the finals, only to lose to Tetsuya Naito. In 2016, Tanahashi's attempts to recreate that 2013 magic were foiled by a time limit draw against Kazuchika Okada to end his tournament. Juice Robinson's already more than halfway to his average point total across all his first 3 G1s. So his first 3 G1s, he averaged 7.33 points. So he's shooting to get over 500, get those 10 points this year. And I think he could consider this tournament a success. Tanahashi's 8-4 in his 12 G1 Climax matches at Korakuen Hall, while Juice Robinson enters this match just 1-4 in the G1 at Korakuen. Tanahashi and Juice Robinson, they've met once in the past. Tanahashi defeated Robinson in 29-52 during the New Japan Cup 2018 semifinals at Korakuen Hall. At 29-52, his match with Tanahashi was his second longest of his career, only shorter than his 32-55 United States Championship match against Kenny Omega at Destruction in Kobe 2017. The second G1 Climax match on the card will be Zack Saber Jr. facing KENTA. Zack Saber Jr. coming in with 2 points, and KENTA also coming in with 2 points. Zack Saber Jr., of course, lost to Tetsuya Naito just the other night, but he defeated Evil on night 1. And KENTA, of course, lost to Juice Robinson just the other night, and he defeated Hirooki Goto on his first night. Zack Saber Jr. may have pushed KENTA over the edge during last year's G1. Saber and KENTA met in the final night of block competition, and ZSJ completed KENTA's skid, defeating him and handing him his 5th loss in a row on the eve of his alignment with Bullet Club. It's tough to say how long KENTA has been colluding with Bullet Club, but it is certainly possible that his loss to Zack Saber Jr. in Budokan that night was the last straw as he searched for the right group to align himself with in NJPW. KENTA looks to even their NJPW series and their G1 series, though he had defeated the British submission master once before. Back in 2011, KENTA met ZSJ on the NOAH European Navigation Tour and defeated him in 19 minutes and 11 seconds. KENTA won both of his 2019 G1 Climax matches at Korakuen Hall, defeating Lance Archer and Evil in last year's tournament, so he is 2-0 in G1 matches at Korakuen. Zack Saber Jr. enters this match 2-3 in G1 Climaxes at Korakuen. KENTA's 7 wins over the last 365 days are 4th highest in New Japan, tied with Jay White behind only Evil, Kazuchika Okada, and Jeff Cobb. KENTA's loss to Zack Saber Jr. in last year's G1 is the only time he's lost via submission during his time with New Japan. The first G1 Climax block match on the card will be YOSHI-HASHI and SANADA, both coming in with 0 points. So SANADA has lost to Toru Yano and Hirooki Goto. YOSHI-HASHI has lost to Juice Robinson and Evil. They're both looking to get those first 2 points on the board. SANADA, who had been considered a favorite before losing these 2 matches, could certainly start to right his ship with a victory over the fledgling YOSHI-HASHI. In head-to-head matchups, these two have faced each other twice. Once in the 2017 New Japan Cup, SANADA defeated YOSHI-HASHI, and then at the NJPW 46th anniversary show in 2018, SANADA also defeated YOSHI-HASHI at Ota City General Gymnasium. YOSHI-HASHI's 276 winning percentage still puts him at risk to be the worst G1 competitor of all time. He's rapidly approaching Tomoaki Homa's 143 all-time low, but I don't think he's going to quite get there this year. I don't think mathematically he can reach that even if he goes 0-9. YOSHI-HASHI enters his match with SANADA just 1-3 in G1 matches at Korakuen, and SANADA is 3-3 in his 6 G1 matches at Korakuen. So that's all I've got for you today. We've previewed all 5 of the G1 Climax B block matches on the September 29th card from Korakuen Hall. I will be back tomorrow to preview the September 30th Korakuen Hall event with the A block. Hopefully I'll have that posted a little bit earlier than this one. That one's got a main event of Tomohiro Ishii versus Shingo Takagi. The semi-main event is Jay White and Will Ospreay, as well as a rematch of the New Beginning and Sapporo's grudge match between Kazuchika Okada and Taichi. Of course, you can find this preview in written form at sportofprowrestling.com or voicesofwrestling.com, and you can give me a follow on Twitter at @TheChrisSamsa to interact with me during any of these G1 cards. I appreciate you giving me a listen, and I'll see you next time on the Sport of Pro Wrestling podcast.